Although you in the Caribbean are not major contributions to the problem, or major contributors to the problem, this region is more affected by climate change and energy challenges than just about anywhere else on Earth. And that's not fair, but it gives you a moral authority, and it gives you a position on the world stage as we attempt to deal with these problems.
Mr. McWilliams was speaking at the inaugural Caribbean Clean Energy Technology Symposium. This came right after the first Caribbean Clean Energy Summit led by Vice President Biden in early 2015.
The time is now. Renewable energy is affordable. We heard discussions downstairs as just how radically the cost has been reduced for renewable energy and how it is producing competitive per kilowatt hours. The cost of developing wind and solar energy has fallen by 50% just in the last 4 years.
A week before this symposium, Stanford professor Mark Jacobson presented at USF, showing the energy mix for the US if only renewables are used. This would create over 7 million jobs. 62,000 deaths from air pollution would be avoided each year, saving billions. And less than 2% of US land area would be required. The cost of electricity would be 64% lower than if we continued as usual. Energy intersects with multiple sectors of island life, from drinking water provision to recreational activities. And this was evident throughout my experience in the Virgin Islands, where I met people working on energy issues across the Caribbean, went on tours of power and water utilities led by young engineers, and visited historic sites led by the National Park Service.
As many of you know, the bank is conducting a feasibility study on establishing a competitive commercial supply chain for natural gas across the Caribbean region. Introduce the natural gas in the form of LNG for electricity generation could reduce the cost of electricity from 17 to 25% at current oil prices.
Natural gas is not a renewable energy source. There is lots of controversy about how clean natural gas really is. The US right now is a top producer of natural gas in the world and has the most reserves after Russia, Iran, and Qatar. The US Department of Energy facilitated the education working group. In addition to breakout sessions, it included a fun icebreaker with energy literacy questions and sharing of best practices.
A renewable fuel, often made from corn, that is mixed with gasoline to burn cleaner.
My name is Griffith. I'm from Barbados. I'm the first Minister of Energy of Barbados in 1981. My mandate at the time from the Prime Minister was to look at renewable energy.
We get about 280 million visitors to our U.S. national parks per year. So my favorite best practice is a demonstration.
Now my best practice, both in marine biology and with this project, is to bring something live. So when I'm bringing things to students, the shock value of it is very good. So I like to put a sea urchin in their hand, a sea cucumber, and say, hey, this ugly little thing, you know what it is? And that's how they learn the importance of such animals, coral reefs, etc. Now I can't give them a live electricity project. We've actually built a light bulb display unit that has incandescent, fluorescent, and LED lights. And just to show them we have some little watt meters on that, just to show them the energy consumption between each.
Working in an informal education sector is really what I like to do.
I've worked with the utility, public utility in Jamaica, and they donated 100 kilowatts PV system to the university, which is helping to reduce our energy bill, as well as it's a good training ground for the students.
I enjoy when we invite graduates of our department in to share what they have done with their physics, and it inspires the current students.
Whenever we go out to do outreach, we have a section called Physics is Fun.
One of my activities in my public administration class is to discuss, critique, analyze with my students the difference between jobs and work.
I am glad I'm here because now I am hearing all these wonderful stories, and I'm pretty sure I will hear more of how in each of your regions you're using science and technology to take young people to the next level in building their ability to become functional members of society.
My name is Ashley Bryan. I work power to make this solar project possible. What you're looking at is a 4.2 megawatt AC solar site or 5 megawatts DC. Approximately 17,960 polycrystalline silicone panels that are made from recycled aluminum and something we have plenty of here in the Virgin Islands. Can be found on our beaches. Anybody have a guess? Exactly.
I'm Cordell Jacobs. I'm an electrical engineer at the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority, the System Planning Department. Okay, these are the solar panels. The sun, it takes the energy from the sun and transfers it to electricity. It comes in as DC from the panel, and this is what converts it to AC, to what you use at home. But when after it converts here, it's at 480 volts. And then it goes to this. This is a transformer. So this steps it up from 480 volts to 34,500 volts. You have the equation, power equals voltage times current. The higher the voltage, the lower the current. So that's why we step up the voltage, so we could transmit the power at a lower current. When we step it down at substations from 34,000 to 13,800, and that's what goes out to your neighborhood. And then in your neighborhood, you have another transformer, maybe one like this, or maybe the cylindrical thing that you see on the pole. Steps it down to the voltage that you have in your house.
It spans 25 acres of land, and it is capable of producing 8.2 million kilowatt hours of energy a year, which can provide power for 500 homes in 1 year. This is the largest site that we have in the Virgin Islands right now. We have a 4 megawatt site that's over in St. Croix. And we have many more projects that we're planning on installing in the future, which include wind, both offshore and onshore, and more solar installations. We also have net metering on the island where customers can install solar panels on their roof, but nothing in this magnitude.
This is where the customer installs the PV solar panels, which is actually the modules correction. That's proper terminology in the solar world. The modules on their homes or in their yachts, mostly in the Virgin Islands, on their homes, and they also use it for water heating. But with the net metering, the excess power that they generate is sent into the grid, and there's also an internet connection agreement. And at night, they buy it back. What that does, you don't need to have any storage or battery. St. Croix presently, there's about 4.2 megawatts of net metering, and in St. Thomas about over 8 megawatts on St. Thomas.
We then visited the Randolph Harley substation in Crumb Bay and the LPG plant that is currently under construction.
That white building that you see over there is the igniter because it's a liquid propane, and then it's going to get ignited into the gas.
I was pleasantly surprised when Dave Starman appeared to lead our tour of the Seven Seas RO water treatment plant. He was a master's student at USF who I once taught, and who played a big role in organizing our first ever Green Expo. This Seven Seas reverse osmosis plant provides 3.3 million gallons per day of water to St. Thomas.
VIWAPA had been producing drinking water for 30 years through thermal desalination, which had a major flaw. It depended on burning fuel oil. Fluctuating oil prices forced VIWAPA to look for other options, including one offered by Seven Seas Corporation, a process called reverse osmosis.
The seawater is first pumped into a series of filters to remove suspended solids. The top layer of the filter, anthracite,
provides some absorption capability for oils and chlorine. It also provides bed depth penetration, so the bigger particles will get caught up here and not clog up the sand. This layer is sand. It's a filter sand. It's a well-graded sand. It does most of the filtration. This is the last process. This gets the rest of the suspended solids that we want to get out of that water and prepares it to go to the RO unit.
The RO unit has multiple tubes of these membranes. The filtered seawater is pumped at very high pressure so that water passes through the membrane, but salt ions and other compounds don't.
Collecting and redistributing that brine energy is really the factor in reverse osmosis over the history of reverse osmosis that has made it competitive with older seawater desalination technologies.
The Virgin Islands Literary Festival was on, and I toured the Christian Said historical site with them. The ranger spoke of the history of the area, including the surrounding marine environment, places that captured stormwater, flooded, and bred mosquitoes. I attended a David Edgecombe play on Hubert Henry Harrison that spoke to the power of community engagement and education. This is something we discussed at the symposium.
With respect to the role of civil society, it is not something that CARICOM itself can start, because civil society has to be driven from the bottom up. CARICOM can't come and say you need to form an organization or an association to do this. But there is interest in the region for a regional civil society, not NGO, to support sustainable energy development. And we certainly will work with that society to strengthen and empower them so that they can reflect the will of the people and provide input into the decision-making process.
Can I just speak to my question on the civil society issue? There's a CARICOM charter on civil society. And while I agree with Devon that CARICOM cannot dictate the creation of a civil society group, I think the charter speaks to the role for CARICOM in facilitating the desires of civil society organizations. In some years past, we had an organization called the Caribbean Conservation Association, a CCA type animal to really provide the accountability and the drive that is required to get the people involved in this area.
Standing at the southernmost tip of St. Croix, I could see Buck Island Reef National Monument. It reminded me that in addition to metrics of health, space, cost, carbon footprint, and job creation, Caribbean people should also include impact on the marine environment when making decisions on their energy matrix.